Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. My name's Mark Kress. I'm a lawyer with Bulkley Richardson in Springfield, Massachusetts. Seated to my right is Gene Cassidy. He's the President and CEO of Eastern States Exposition. And to my left is John Giuliano, who is the Director of Special Events and Entertainment at the Eastern States Exposition. I think the issue before the Commission this morning is a very, very simple one. Our reading, or the Eastern States Exposition reading of the statute and regulations, is that there is an affirmative duty on any applicant for a gaming license in the Commonwealth to reach out to not only surrounding communities, but impacted live entertainment venue sites and negotiate a good faith agreement. That has not happened in this case. Not only has the reach out not occurred in any significant sense, but we are also faced, like the Majestic, with being inconvenienced and financially burdened by having to appear before the Commission to defend a position which should be quite obvious. We submitted a response to the MGM opposition which details the overwhelming reasons why the Eastern States Exposition should be designated a protected venue, and we would urge the Commission to carefully review those papers. But rather than dwell on that, at this point, we think the Eastern States couldn't fit more precisely within those statutory and regulatory definitions. But rather than dwell on that, which is all, as I said, detailed in writing in the formal response we've submitted, I'd like to allow Gene Cassidy, the President and CEO of the Eastern States, to personally tell you a little bit about the exposition and why it is deserving of the protections specifically afforded under the gaming statute.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and ladies and gentlemen in attendance. Being mindful of the short window that we have, I hope you don't mind that I'm going to read from prepared statements to increase efficiency. I am Gene Cassidy. I'm the President and the Chief Executive Officer of the Eastern States Exposition, and I'm here today to personally tell you as much as I can in this short window about the Eastern States. I have put a board up for you to peruse, and for my friends at MGM who might not be able to see it, I'll offer Mr. Mathis a copy. We have a long history. We have one-of-a-kind, irreplaceable agricultural and educational programming that plays a critical role in the Western Massachusetts economy. My need to be here is to personally ask you to help protect it from one of the most daunting challenges we have ever faced, the development and operation of an $800 million casino in downtown Springfield, less than 2 miles from our location in West Springfield. Eastern States Exposition, commonly known by our agricultural affairs trade name, the Big E, has continuously operated for more than 97 years. Eastern States Exposition is the largest cultural event that occurs on the eastern seaboard, with year-round visitation that exceeds 2.5 million people. We are the 5th largest fair in all of North America, hosting nearly 1.5 million people at our agricultural event annually. Ranked by size, we fall behind only the Texas State Fair, the Houston Livestock Show, the San Antonio Livestock Show and Rodeo, and the Minnesota State Fair, all of whom receive taxpayer-funded subsidies for infrastructure and operations from their respective state governments. The Eastern States Exposition receives no such financial assistance. According to Regional Economic Models, Inc., an economic modeling firm that creates models for Fortune 100 companies, as well as worldwide governments and universities, a firm that is located here in Massachusetts, The Eastern States Exposition generates an economic impact on the greater Springfield region that is nearly $500 million. I'll repeat, nearly $500 million. We create 3,000 jobs in Hampden County, $92 million in personal income in the county. Furthermore, REMI calculates that ESE generates $3 million in income tax revenues to the Commonwealth, $1.4 million in sales tax revenues to the Commonwealth, more than $430,000 in hotel taxes for the greater Springfield area, and over $3.3 million in food and beverage tax revenues. Additionally, the Eastern States Exposition impact reaches well beyond greater Springfield and accounts for an additional 2,000 jobs and $134 million in personal income throughout New England. Eastern States Exposition, at nearly 100 years old, has been overlooked by legislators and regulators for a long time. I implore you today to address the concerns we present, to ask questions of me, and ultimately to set the stage to prepare necessary protections for this quiet organization, and an organization that has provided unique and irreplaceable agricultural and educational programming and enormous horsepower to the greater Springfield economy since its founding by our visionary patriarch, Joshua Loring Brooks, and his contemporaries, including Horace Moses, James and Helen Storrow, J.C. Penney, and many others. More than just a fair, in addition to the portfolio of economic benefits of a healthy Eastern States Exposition, we have fulfilled a mission that supports agriculture communities of New England and beyond. We host Future Farmers of America and 4-H youth from across the country. Eastern States Exposition is the only fair in America that has FFA participation from as many as 18 states. We produce some of the most important and renowned equine, bovine, and swine shows in the country, including one of the oldest horse shows in America. This month, January 2014, we hosted the largest poultry show in the United States. We host important trade shows, some of which are counted among the largest in the country. Among them, one of the largest machine tool manufacturing shows in North America. Certainly the largest east of the Mississippi takes place biennially at the Eastern States. Other events, though less glamorous, number over 100, including summer country music festivals and performances of the Springfield Symphony Summer Pop Series. All of these events, though not specifically mentioned or protected by gaming legislation, are precariously balanced by the success of the fair. Without the fair and its ability to attract large crowds by offering an array of top-quality live concerts and comedy performances, and other year-round scheduled events that provide the economic underpinning for our operation, the world of agriculture, agricultural best practices, and education, and the regional economy suffer. More than agriculture, Storeton Village Museum, founded in 1929 by Mrs. Helen Storrow, was the first undertaking of its kind in the United States. The village of 18th century and early 19th century buildings was created at Eastern States Exposition when buildings from throughout New England were disassembled from their original locations and moved piece by piece, brick by brick, beam by beam, to the grounds of Eastern States. Until that time, never before in American history had such efforts been made to preserve American history. While antique buildings had been preserved on their foundations, never had such important buildings been moved to be saved. Again, although there is no specific mention in any gaming legislation that requires protections for such civic assets, the Exposition's ability to continue to offer and operate such valuable and one-of-a-kind assets will certainly be compromised without the protections afforded under the impacted live entertainment venues provisions in the gaming statute. Our history, beginning with the National Dairy Show in 1916, includes a prominent role in the development of the American Hockey League at our storied Coliseum, featuring some of the greatest names in American hockey, including Teddy Shore, the Springfield Indians, the Springfield Kings, and at one time the home to the New England, now Hartford Whalers. Most importantly, through it all and still, we have featured the biggest names in entertainment, annual visits from the greats of days gone by, like Bob Hope, Gene Autry, Johnny Cash, Buddy Hackett, Liberace, Sid Charisse, Arthur Godfrey, and Paul Lynde, to contemporaries of today, like Beyonce, Jessica Simpson, Brad Paisley, Reba McEntire, The Beach Boys, Fergie, Miranda Lambert, Def Leppard, Leonard Skinner, Austin Mahone, DJ Pauly, Alan Jackson, Hunter Hayes, Jeff Dunham, Carrie Underwood, and on and on and on, including summertime outdoor country music festivals that attract tens of thousands for just day-long events. In 2013 alone, we produced 93 live entertainment performances on large stages, 51 live entertainment performances on the Storeton Village small stage, 51 circus performances, and 51 shows on the Avenue Estates stage. I personally asked the commissioners to assist Eastern States Exposition in our effort not only to continue to offer top entertainment, live entertainment in Western Mass, but also to continue to be able to offer other unique and irreplaceable agriculture and educational program we produce by designating Eastern States Exposition as an impacted live entertainment venue. I am limited by respect for your time and the margins of my capacity as only the 7th president in our 100-year history to lead this august organization known as Eastern States Exposition. I hope I have done adequate justice to one of the most important and proven entertainment and economic development resources that exists for Greater Springfield, for Massachusetts, for New England, and for agriculture in the entire United States, the Eastern States Exposition. I hope I've gotten your attention, piqued your interest, and cultivated the process necessary to protect Eastern States from what is evidencing itself to be the most daunting challenge we've faced since our founding a century ago. That this proven name in entertainment and regional economic development, that this 501c3, self-supporting, non-taxpayer supported public charity has regrettably been forced to appear before you today, its very existence challenged by an entertainment and financial behemoth accompanied by a phalanx of lawyers and advisors who can wax on romantic about their ties to New England, yet had no legitimate dialogue with Eastern States Exposition, that we are forced to appear today with our attorney, Bulkley, Richardson, and Jelinas, a firm that has represented us since Warren G. Harding was president. And as much as he loves the Big E, he doesn't come here for free. It says something.
Harding?
It says something. It says something at minimum. It reveals that Eastern States Exposition needs your assistance and your intervention. Eastern States Exposition supports on a grand scale unique programming, as well as, and in an important way, the economy of the region, the state, New England, and beyond. We play a role that deserves, a role that requires special attention. The ability of Eastern States Exposition to continue to offer such programming and economic benefit will, without a doubt, be significantly threatened unless the Commission designates it an impacted live entertainment venue, entitling it to the protections afforded under the gaming statute. In closing, I want you to know that I am grateful for your time and I appreciate your thoughtful consideration, and I encourage any questions you might have.
Commissioners? Thank you.
I don't know where the nexus of the competition is. I mean, they're not going to take the poultry show, I assume, but where is the competition that you're concerned about?
Well, the competition clearly is in our ability to seek and book name entertainment. The fact of the matter is Eastern States has had an incredibly difficult time since the advent of the casinos just 75 miles away in Connecticut. They've driven the price of entertainment up to into the sky, skyrocketed into the hemisphere, or stratosphere, I should say. They have blockouts on dates and distances.
So it's the big shows, it's the Beyoncés.
It's the big shows, and frankly, you know, frankly, I have great fear that, you know, with the advent of their ability to manage and operate what I fondly call the Springfield Civic Center, but the Mass Mutual Center, they could take shows away from the Eastern States that presently we have. They're very important to our existence.
You mean trade shows?
trade shows, and yes, they could take the poultry show too.
Okay.
When-
Go ahead.
When you book the shows that you were mentioning earlier, what's the capacity of audience?
We have, if you're not familiar with the Eastern States, we have an area that we create during the fair, which we call the Xfinity Arena Stage, and that will seat up to about 6,300 people. We also have on the fairgrounds our Coliseum building, which is vintage 1916, which will seat similarly about 6,000 people. In addition to that, also during the fair, we have a smaller stage on the grounds. We have several smaller stages, one of which will seat, is open seating. It can legitimately fill up with about 3,000 or 4,000 people. And then there are two additional smaller locations where you would have hundreds of people in attendance.
Okay. Anybody else?
These headliner shows, Carrie Underwood, Beyonce, are they only during the fair, or are they at times when the fair isn't there?
In recent times, mainly because of the price of securing these entertainers has skyrocketed, so that it's been just during the fair. But during the history of the Eastern States, we have a year-round history of having featured name performers on the property.
Okay, thank you.
MGM?
Thank you, Chairman. Again, I want to bring us back, I think, to what the current statutory and regulatory structure here requires us to look at and consider when considering an impacted live entertainment venue. Again, going back to some of my previous remarks, really the legislation's focus was on certainly protecting almost absolutely venues with seats between 1,000 and 3,500. And second, the statute is really designed to protect existing venues from potential advantages that gaming applicants may have in attracting talent to venues that are part of a casino development. They're the so-called, and these are, I think, the Commission's term, supply-side concerns that the MGC, again, discussed back in the fall of 2012. The primary example of that being things like radius restrictions. The statutes and regulations, however, are not designed to protect every venue from competition in the market. They're designed to protect from the use or abuse of market power and the potential to subsidize entertainment offers or put in place restrictions such as the radius restriction or other anti-competitive practices that we just have not heard about today at all. We've heard a great history of the Big E. We understand it's important to the region. It's actually a vision that we share, and I think Mr. Mathis is going to speak to really the unlimited opportunities considering the diverse nature of the offerings that the Big E, that the Eastern States has well beyond live entertainment venues. And I do think we need to stay focused to that. This isn't a statute or the regulations don't protect convention business. They don't protect trade show business. It's really looking at how the market will operate in Massachusetts when it comes to attracting and bringing live entertainment to this particular region. You know, we've talked about the factors that really that go into evaluating that, including distance, venue capacity, the type of performances, whether or not the applicant is going to propose any radius restrictions, which we have put on the record numerous times and which is part of our application materials before the Commission, that we are not going to do that. Certainly, the Commission has really formulated a multi-part test for this in those factors and really went back, I think, in designing its regulations. It didn't come up with essentially a set of boxes that get checked off and you're per se an entertainment venue for the purposes of this regulation. You said you were going to take this up on a case-by-case basis, and I think that's important, and certainly I don't think anybody can be penalized by having a disagreement over whether or not an institution qualifies for that. Again, is the Eastern States likely to experience a negative impact from the development of the proposed project in Springfield? Essentially, the Eastern States has come here today and just declared itself an impacted live entertainment venue based on the proximity and the facts that it happens to have 2 live entertainment venues that it programs with live entertainment. It believes that enhanced competition, and I think we've heard words like significantly threatened, biggest challenge in the history of the fair. It believes that the enhanced competition from the 12 events that MGM has proposed through local venues such as the Mass Mutual Center, Symphony Hall, and as well as City Stage are essentially what I take from the presentation going to be the downfall of the eastern states.
Well, let me just jump in there, because that's not quite what I heard. I heard, and Mr. Mathis said that those 12 are a minimum.
Yeah.
But what I heard was a concern about being able to outbid, and this is my interpretation of it, being able to outbid the Beyoncés and the Carrie Underwoods, and the ability to host the kinds of trade shows that otherwise would be at the eastern states, and a thin margin that allows the Big E to exist and serve the regional agricultural community, and is supported by these, the income from these big name acts. That's the essence of what I heard.
Sure, I understand that's where you're coming from, Chairman, and I don't mean to at all mischaracterize the argument that's been made here today, but I want to put a fine point on the type of what we are offering in Springfield, which is, again, not subject to a maximum limitation, but as Mr. Mathis indicated previously to the Commissioner, it's our hope that the minimums that we've provided for these particular forums will help them sort of sustain themselves and go on to compete in the marketplace. And the matter of fact is we are going with established existing venues that have competed in the marketplace with the eastern states in the past, and they will continue to do so, and have the in connection with the added events that MGM is going to offer. I am a little bit troubled sort of about the creep in here with trade shows. I'm not sure how that fits into the live impacted venue regulations or the intent behind the legislation. It was really designed in order to protect, I think, theaters that were within a certain seating capacity. So I'd urge the Commission to really stay focused on that part, and taking your comments, certainly, Commissioner, to heart about what is being asked here. I really think it's appropriate to focus on the live entertainment aspects. The eastern states has also suggested, and certainly their experience in comparison to some of the practices in the Connecticut casinos and the driving up of potential prices related to that. Certainly the biggest one there, again, is having to do with blackouts or radius restrictions. And it's really something that MGM has not put on the table, has made abundantly clear to the Commission that we don't intend to engage in that type of a practice. And I do think it's important, too, to take stock of sort of the eastern states as a whole. Again, thinking back to what the regulation, I think, and the statute was intended to protect, the eastern states certainly is a significant organization, one that's very important, certainly, to the region, offers economic benefits that you've certainly heard. But really, I think an organization of that magnitude, especially in comparison to what you heard, it's interesting, earlier today regarding a local theater, we sort of have bookends here. Is this also the type of venue that the regulation was intended to protect based on sort of the other spectrum of being a really major institution, attracting 2.5 million visitors per year, owning 175 acres, having multiple buildings and 2 large entertainment venues? It's a nonprofit, but it's also a big business, certainly as well, and I think that should be taken into consideration.
If I may...
Excuse me, just one second. Are you finished, MJ?
No, I want to give Mr. Mathis a little bit of time. Again, I think that it really to highlight of what our vision is with the Eastern States Expedition. It truly is a gem in a lot of ways, and certainly the opportunity to leverage its offerings in connection with the development in Springfield is something that we've been interested in and certainly have had some discussions about. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Mathis to talk a little bit about.
I really will try to be brief about on this. I mean, if you look at the if you look at the stats in front of you, when you talk about a behemoth, I think Eastern States falls into that category and Big E falls in that category. If the statute were enlightened enough, they would potentially provide us protection from some of the things that you just heard. Beyonce and all the other acts that they described, they're competitive. You know, I think the danger of these hearings, and I think we've fallen into it again, I'm going to fall into it again, is to turn them into negotiations. So I think context is important, but I will tell you that despite the comments, and I respect Mr. Cassidy immensely, we've had a meeting, a face-to-face meeting, we've had a phone call, we've exchanged documents. This is a commercial transaction between two powerhouses. And with his permission, I would show you the back and forth we've had on that document, and you'll understand that this is really about leverage and commercial transactions. For example, we mutually agree that it's a good idea to have shuttles go back and forth during the Big E, that 17-day window between our property and the fair. You know, the question is going to be, who pays for it? That's a commercial transaction that should happen between two large commercial companies. My sense is that they believe that through the designation, they'll get more leverage in that discussion. I don't think that's an appropriate use of this forum. I'll also say that there are many benefits that we discussed in terms of impact. Ultimately, it's about impact. I know they've got a large live entertainment program, but the question is, will we adversely impact them? There's a reference to they, a generic they, and radius restrictions. We will put on the record. In fact, this year is a great example. As I understand it, the Big E had this record year this year, 1.5 million attendees. Same year that we put pit bull in the Mass Mutual Center, the same year that we put professional bull riding in the Mass Mutual Center, the same year that we put Boys to Men in Symphony Hall. So the concept that they can do well and we can do well is not inconsistent. And none of those agreements did we put a radius restriction that prevented any of those acts from going into the Big E. Commit now that we would not put any such restriction. So I think ultimately the question is, have they demonstrated that we will adversely impact them? I don't think they have, because that's certainly not our intent. And if allowed to proceed outside of this context, I'm confident we'll reach an agreement. Will it be an agreement that they're completely happy with? I can't say that. Will it be an agreement that we're completely happy with? Probably not. But the point is, we're large enough organizations that we can reach commercial terms to make sure that we both mutually benefit. We don't ignore the fact that they have a tremendous opportunity to provide visits to our property, and by the same token, we can provide visitation to their property. Thank you.
How many seats are in the Mass Mutual? Does anybody know?
I think there's various configurations, but I think it can go up to 8,000.
8,000?
Yeah.
Anybody else before we go back? Did you have something else you wanted to say?
Well, yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just, I wanted to further explain, the Eastern States relies on a cadre of about 1,000 volunteers. When the fair is running, our payroll will be about 1,000 people, but we operate the Eastern States Exposition year-round with less than 30 full-time employees. So as much as we're a big business, we have to run a certain way in order for us to survive. And we rely, through our history, on philanthropy and in this case, volunteers. So, I've never heard the Eastern States be described as a big business. During our 17-day fair, we can earn as much as 82% of our revenue in 17 days. 82% of our gross receipts will be raised in 17 days. On the middle weekend of the fair, it's been known to happen that we always keep our fingers crossed for the middle weekend, because we can earn as much as 26% of our gross operating receipts on just those 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. We are in a very precarious business. We have a 100-year-old plant. And we do have 175 acres. We have 44 buildings, most of which were built prior to the Second World War. It is a very capital-intensive plant to maintain. We operate on an incredibly thin margin.
Just in closing, a couple observations. You know, what I guess I'm hearing MGM say is, and the juxtaposition is interesting because the Majestic went before us, but the Majestic is far too small. The Eastern States Exposition is too large. Where's the middle? What meaning does this statutory protection have? I'm also a little shocked, I guess, by the position that it somehow suggested that the Eastern States is using this as leverage. Under the statute, the Eastern States does not have an obligation. The reason it's here is because not only did MGM ignore it in the early parts of the process, but now it objected. The Eastern States didn't choose to be here. It's entitled to the protection. The reasons why it's entitled to those protections are outlined and detailed in the papers it's filed with the Commission. And once again, we urge you to focus on those papers and designate the Eastern States Exposition impacted live entertainment venue and give it the protections to which it's entitled. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thanks.
folks.
Thank you.
We will take a 1-hour lunch break. We'll be back at 1:45, and we will then pick up with Lynn Auditorium, Mohegan Sun, et cetera.